As Marco Rossi trade rumors continue to escalate day by day, one recent article links a surprising team out east in the Philadelphia Flyers to Marco Rossi with some very interesting names linked to the Wild. We have to dive into this potentially perfect trade opportunity for both teams, but it's not just that. We have to dive into a report from the Daily Faceoff on how the Wild plan to use their cap space this offseason. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming up on this episode of Wild Digest, but guys, quick reminder, we're almost at 1,100 subs and still 90% of you watching this video are still not subscribed. And hey, we got Wild content coming all off season long. And if you want to be updated on all your favorite things Minnesota Wild, this is the spot to be. Hit the free button down below. Mark, let's dive into this. And I want to start with this report from the Daily Faceoff that I'll link this down below as well as the other article that kind of gives us some insight into what the Wild are planning. And they say, speaking with a source close to the situation, I'm told that the Wild plan to be very aggressive this summer with their newfound cap space. According to Puckpedia, the Wild are set to have a little more than $20.5 million in cap space this summer at their disposal. Now, of course, Mark, we have to prepare for the Kaprizov extension, Faber's extension's kicking in. There's a few other things here and there. But regardless, we know Bill Guerin's in the market for a center or a scoring winger. We know there's a lot of trades on the Rossi front. And when we look at the top UFAs, there's some big names here. Not to mention Besser, who's not here. Even a name like Brock Nelson, who we've heard linked to the Wild. Bennett linked to the Wild. Mark, when you hear that the Wild plan to be extremely aggressive, do you think there's any world where they could go for someone even maybe a bigger name, someone with more points, someone like an Ehlers, even as far as someone like a Marner? But, regardless, this aggressiveness is very, very interesting.
I mean, the Wild had to be active. We've seen them year after year trying to get into the second, the third. Winning the Stanley Cup is their priority. With this team opening up so much cap space, with how much success they've had with the limited cap space with the Suter and Parise contract, this is the perfect time to not really maybe actually go all in at this point. You want to go out, you want to add guys to this roster to continue to make this better. You don't want to add a bunch of veterans that are going to fall off in a 1 to 2 year span when Kaprizov's contract's finally kicking in. You have all this cap tied up into guys, but I do think Bill Guerin is going to be very actively looking for another scoring winger to add more depth to his team, a new center, and I wouldn't be surprised if he added even more than just two positions like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the interesting thing heading into this offseason because there's so many things that the Wild could do with the roster. Again, we need a scoring winger. We need scoring depth, that's for sure. Defense, pretty much set, but I mean, we've also heard rumors that Guerin might be looking for another goalie to kind of solidify the backup to Gustavsson as Wallstedt's still kind of eased into the NHL. So I pose this question to the fans now watching. What do you think this means for the Minnesota Wild's cap space heading into this summer? Very aggressive. Are we talking someone like a Marner? I've seen his name mentioned, like, hey, maybe they will. But look, I think that'd be a bit too far. I don't know if he really solves the problems that, Bill Guerin really likes. Not really a Bill Guerin style of player, but we'll have to wait and see. But Mark, when we're talking on the trade front, look, I know the Marco Rossi things are going crazy. And every single day, you guys tell us, and we tell you, I don't want Rossi to be traded, but as the days go by, it seems more and more likely. We're talking, like, at this point, I feel like it's got to be over a 75% chance, but look, I'm not here to speculate on the chance. What I am here to do is talk about what other teams are saying, and this one comes from a writer for the Philadelphia Flyers, which is an interesting team name, one that I didn't necessarily consider, but they could use some help down the middle, and Rossi's scoring could bolster their team, and they kind of say in the article there's a few players that the Flyers could send, including some picks. Look, one of their first round picks in 2025. They have 3 first round picks in 2025. Originally belonged to the Colorado Avalanche, which were dispatched in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Draft pick in the low 20s is a good starting place. They got Noah Cates, Tyson Forster, but they also go on to mention guys like Jet Lachenko and Owen Tippett. Now, again, I don't want to go through all of these guys specifically, Mark, but before we dive into maybe a little more in-depth into the players, what do you think about the Flyers and the Wild as a nice trade partner? I mean, there hasn't been a ton of overlap between these teams in the past, but a team like the Flyers, who's looking to really fight for those playoffs right now, with some younger guys and some guys on longer-term deals like an Owen Tippett, I feel like it could make a lot of sense to bring in a young guy like Rossi, give him a nice long-term contract, a guy that'll produce for you for a long time.
Yeah, and the big thing is we've seen Rossi kind of slide down the lineup. I mean, 4th-line minutes in the playoffs. It does seem like his future's set to head to a new team, but the Flyers make a ton of sense for a trade partner. They have a lot of young scoring centers, wingers that are waiting to take that breakout campaign. And I do think the Wild in the position to help that out. I mean, Kaprizov's going to make anyone look outstanding. So adding maybe a young goal scorer locked up to term would be perfect. And I do think the Flyers have a couple of these guys that are on the brink of just having, like I said, a breakout year that could change a lot for the Wild.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys. You even said Brink, Bobby Brink is one of their nice young prospects as well. They got a lot of good names, but one of the names that caught my eye the most in this article was an Owen Tippett. Now, the reason Owen Tippett caught my eye, well, actually, by the way, Noah Cates is a Minnesota native. I just don't think his place. He's an RFA at the end of this season. He's big, 6'2", 194. You know, Billy G likes that. But again, a career high of 16 goals and a career high of 38 points coming a few years ago. I think he could be a great player. It'd be nice to have him in a deal, but he's definitely not the centerpiece of a Rossi trade. If we're talking a Rossi trade, we're probably talking a first-round pick plus some other good talent. And when I look at a guy like Owen Tippett, Mark, like 26 years old, he's very early in a long-term deal that's going to pay him $6.2 million per season. He was mentioned in this article by the Flyers writer, and I find that crazy because Tippett just seems like a Flyer for life, one of those kind of guys. He's been there since 2021, since coming over from the Panthers, and he committed pretty early to a long-term extension. And he has been very good. The Flyers had a bad year this year, but 27 goals, 28 goals, 20 goals at 6.2 million, Mark. What do you think about an Owen Tippett as the centerpiece in a kind of Rossi trade? Because to me, out of all the guys they mentioned, look, Jet Lachenko, I also think looks amazing. We might dive into him just a little bit before the video's over, but when we're talking specifically about Owen Tippett here, to me, like, again, 6'1", 210, bigger guy, an incredible shot, can control the puck well. I feel like he would fit Minnesota's style of hockey, though he's not a center. What are your thoughts on Tippett as the potential centerpiece here?
Owen Tippett makes total sense. I mean, a guy that can go out and score 20 goals per year. We've seen him throwing over 2 hits a game over the last 3 seasons, having 100 plus hits. This seems like the perfect Wild style. You get a guy that can come in, score, add depth in the middle six, the top six, locked up long term, and also be able to light it up. And we haven't really seen him hit his full potential yet. I don't know, Josh, this plus a draft pick that you can even move at, the NHL deadline to add a new piece. This makes total sense as the first part. You don't want to do a one-for-one swap. But if you can get Tippett plus a draft pick or a prospect, I think the Minnesota Wild will come out like bandits.
Yeah, the question then is, would the Flyers do it? I mean, again, if I'm the Flyers, I don't know if a Marco Rossi is going to give you more to your team than Tippett, but I mean, straight up, Rossi's season just this past year is better than any of Owen Tippett's career seasons. Again, 24 goals, 60 points for Rossi. Not that far off of Owen Tippett's career high in goals. Not that far off in points. Rossi's less physical, but he plays a position more in demand in center. So very interesting. And just before we finish off the video, again, leave your thoughts down below as well. These are some interesting names. A guy like Jet Lachenko, now, he was kind of a shocking case this past year, Mark, as he just turned 18 just before the start of the season in late August, and he cracked the Flyers roster right out of it. Like, he was on the Flyers early this season. Unbelievable. Like, no one expected him to do that. Again, did spend a lot more time down with Lehigh Valley, spent a lot of time back in Guelph, of course. They sent him back down, had a good year, 56 points in 46 games, 46 penalty minutes. Lachenko's one of those guys, Mark, that I feel like could really, really blossom in the right situation. He is a center, he is a right-hand shot. Doesn't really fix a huge size problem, but regardless, when you're talking an 18-year-old who cracked an NHL roster out of camp, if the Flyers are ever willing to let him go, I think it makes sense, though at the same time, I don't know if he fits the timeline as well, which is kind of crazy to say.
I mean, if you wanted to go out and be active in free agency, grab a center, grab a winger, this would make total sense. You bring in a guy that's on a cheap contract that can grow into a role with the Wild team. But if you want to actively make a trade that's going to affect this season, I think you would stay away from someone like this and get someone that has more NHL experience, someone that's been around, and like I said, someone that can score 20 goals.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait and see. There's a lot of potential names, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Now, what do you think of the Flyers, first of all, as a possible trade partner? Because, look, if Rossi's getting moved, I want to get a nice haul back. And look, this is from a Flyers article. I'll link it down below. Go have a read. Like, they bring up all these names as fits and trades for Marco Rossi. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, but that will do it for this episode of Wild Digest. And just another big thank you for helping us hit 1,000 subscribers. But we have even bigger goals in mind. So if you did enjoy this video, leave a free subscribe down below as well, because we'll be coming your way with content all off season long. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Mark Pye. We'll catch you in the next one.